All right, let's talk about a piece of software that's so ingrained in our work lives, we hardly even notice it anymore. I'm talking about the spreadsheet. But in this age of AI and instant data, we have to ask, is it finally time to evolve beyond Excel? We're going to break down why this 40-year-old technology might actually be holding your business back. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Just think for a second about the most critical reports, the biggest forecasts, the most important decisions your company makes. Now, what if I told you that the basic tool you're using for all of that, it's based on a model that's literally 40 years old? I mean, this timeline really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? The whole thing kicked off with Lotus 123 back in '83, and yeah, it was a total game changer for its time. Then by '95, Microsoft swooped in and made Excel the king of the castle with the Office suite. But then look at that last part. For 40 years, while everything else in our world has been completely transformed by technology, the fundamental idea of a grid of cells and formulas has stayed pretty much the same. The world changed, but the spreadsheet really didn't. So you might be thinking, okay, so what? If it's not broken, why fix it? Well, it turns out that just sticking with the status quo has some really big, really expensive hidden costs. Let's actually put some numbers on the true price of just staying put. Let's just start with this number, because it is absolutely wild. 88%. Study after study has found that nearly 9 out of every 10 business spreadsheets have at least one major error in them. And we're not talking about a simple typo here. We're talking about formula mistakes and data blunders that have literally cost big companies billions of dollars. And hey, if the massive risk of error isn't enough to convince you, how about the cost in time? Professionals are spending up to 40% of their work week just fighting with their data. Copying, pasting, reformatting, trying to merge files in Excel. Let that sink in. That's 2 full days of a 5-day work week wasted on just getting the data ready, not on actually analyzing it to find any value. All of this leads to this really powerful idea, calling our Excel files digital fossils. And it's the perfect description, right? That's what they are. They're these static little snapshots of data, trapped and buried in disconnected folders all over the company. It creates all these different versions of the truth and makes finding what you need an archaeological dig. And the consequences of this are, well, they're pretty bad. Get this, a small company, just 100 employees, can create over 20,000 separate Excel files in a single year. That is a swamp of data. It's no wonder that people spend 65% of their time not analyzing, but just hunting for the right file. And of course, every time someone attaches one of these to an email and hits send, you're creating a huge security and compliance nightmare. So what's the alternative? Well, this little experiment is basically a knockout punch. Look at this. Creating a sales dashboard, what took over 4 hours in Excel, was done in 45 minutes with a modern tool. How about updating the monthly report? That went from over 2 hours down to 5 minutes. That's a 96% time savings. These aren't just small tweaks. This is a completely different way of working. So this all seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? The data is crystal clear. So why is pretty much everyone still clinging to Excel? Well, it turns out the biggest hurdle isn't about the technology. It's about psychology. It really boils down to these 4 human barriers. First, we just like what's familiar. It's comfortable. Second, we're scared of change. We see all the risks in trying something new, but we're totally blind to the huge risks of doing nothing and getting left behind. Then there's professional identity. For a lot of people, being the Excel guru is a badge of honor. And finally, you've just got plain old organizational inertia. Big companies are like giant ships. They don't turn on a dime. In this quote right here, it nails the danger of relying on that Excel guru. All your critical business logic gets locked up in these insanely complicated formulas that maybe 1 or 2 people in the entire company actually understand. So what happens when that person quits or retires? All that crucial knowledge just walks right out the door, leaving you with a fragile system nobody knows how to fix. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a better way. We are right now entering a new era of analysis. It's an era that lets us move away from all that frustrating data wrangling and instead focus on what actually matters, making smart, fast, data-driven decisions. I mean, just look at the difference when it comes to working together. The old way. We've all lived this nightmare. Endless email chains with file attachments named V1, V2, V3 underscore final, V3 underscore final, underscore final. You know what I'm talking about. The new way? It's one single source of truth. Everybody is looking at the same live data at the same time. All those hours you spent just trying to figure out who has the latest version, they just disappear.
And all of this leads to this really important idea called data democratization. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. It's about breaking down the walls. Instead of having a few data gatekeepers who control all the information, these modern platforms empower anyone in the company to get the data they need and find their own insights without needing a PhD in VLOOK.
So what does this new toolkit even look like? Well, think of it in a few categories. You've got your big business intelligence platforms like Power BI that create these amazing interactive dashboards. Then you have things like Airtable, which kind of feel like a spreadsheet on steroids, giving you the power of a database without the complexity. And then you have the really cutting-edge AI tools, where you can literally just ask a question in plain English and it gives you the answer.
So the choice really does seem pretty clear, doesn't it? Evolve or get left behind. But how do you actually do it? I know it can feel like a huge, overwhelming task. So let's just break it down into a practical, step-by-step plan.
Look, this is not about banning Excel tomorrow. That's not realistic. This is about a smart, phased approach. You start by just auditing, figure out where Excel is causing the most headaches. Then you prioritize. Pick one of those high-pain areas and run a small pilot project with a new tool. Once you prove how much better it is on that small scale, you'll have the success story you need to get buy-in and gradually expand from there.
Now, I know exactly what some of you are probably thinking right now. It's the number one objection I hear every single time. This all sounds great, but our team just doesn't have the skills for all these fancy new tools.
And that right there is the beautiful secret of this new generation of tools. They were built specifically for non-experts. They're designed for the rest of us. With simple drag-and-drop interfaces and AI helpers built right in, the learning curve is often way, way easier than what it takes to become a true master of advanced Excel.
Let me leave you with this powerful image from an executive at Accenture. He said, companies that maintain Excel-based processes are essentially driving while looking in the rearview mirror. It's so perfect because it captures the real danger here. You're stuck looking at where you've been, completely blind to the road ahead. And that brings us right back to where we started. In an age of artificial intelligence, where insights can be found in seconds, clinging to a 40-year-old tool isn't just a habit anymore, it's a conscious choice. And the question you have to ask is that a choice your business can really afford to make? Thanks for joining me.